Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have hired former CIA agents with a proven track record of lying to the public, gaslighting the public.
Blake Lively just made a shocking move in her legal fight against Justin Baldoni, and let me tell you, it's the peak of hypocrisy. She went out and hired a pricey ex-CIA operative to save her deteriorating image.
It's absurd that they were going on this level.
As we know, these agents will do whatever it takes to shape the story. However, no matter what tactics she employs, her government-backed PR expert won't be able to compete with Brian Fredman in court.
Breaking news, Justin Baldoni just got a big win, meaning Blake Lively got a big loss. Are her lawyers dumb? Like, what's happening? Why do they keep making these mistakes and fumbling the ball like this?
Lively's legal fight against Justin Baldoni has officially become the biggest joke in Hollywood. What began as a lawsuit has now turned into a humiliating PR war, where Lively is not only losing in court, but also publicly embarrassing herself along the way.
Well, I need to know who they were retaliating.
The woman who once prided herself on being America's sweetheart is now desperately throwing every legal tantrum she can, trying to make something, anything, stick to Baldoni. And guess what? None of it is working.
I mean, is it not a little hypocritical? Is this bad look of her if she's trying to tell the courts that we should stop talking about this in public?
Blake isn't just losing, she's losing spectacularly. The more she pushes, the more she exposes herself as a manipulative, entitled Hollywood actress who thought she could use the legal system as her personal revenge tool.
You're despicable and a massive...
But now the reality check has arrived, and Judge Lewis Lyman just completely shut down her entire legal team.
There's a lot of this sort of like Blake complaining that they're evading the privacy, they're doing all this. Then meanwhile, right, she's on Saturday Night Live with Ryan making jokes, hitting back. I mean, is it not a little hypocritical? Is this bad look of her if she's trying to tell the courts that we should stop talking about this in public?
The latest court ruling was nothing short of a judicial roast session. Liv's lawyers went in guns blazing, demanding that Baldoni's entire life history be handed over on a silver platter. Every phone call, every text message, every location he's been to since 2022.
Team Blake was trying to basically ask for like 2.5 years worth of cell phone records, everything, locations, all this data, which felt very evasive.
Yes, 2022, despite the fact that she herself claimed his so-called retaliation only began in August 2020. Apparently, time travel is now part of Lively's legal strategy. Bravo! Let's talk about just how absurd this subpoena request was. Lively's team essentially demanded that Baldoni's phone company hand over every call log, text, and even his location data for over 2 years.
They basically said, listen, it's ridiculous that you're asking for all this stuff because you're asking for 2.5 years, but you claim the retaliation started in August of this summer.
Not just his, by the way. They wanted records from PR experts, executives, and even Baldoni's own doctor. That's right, his doctor, because clearly his annual checkups must hold damning evidence of a Hollywood conspiracy against Blake Lively.
Yes, Baldoni, you're right. We have squashed the subpoena. The reach was too big, and therefore they agreed that the ruling, they squashed the extent of the seek the phone records of Wayfair. The ruling is without prejudice. Live parties, several modified subpoenas.
Judge Lyman wasn't having any of it. He looked at the circus act, sighed, and slammed the entire subpoena down for being ridiculously broad and totally unnecessary. He outright called it overly intrusive and disproportionate, which is basically the legal equivalent of saying, "What the hell are you even asking for?"
They went and met her and they said they were going to get rid of the request to extend it to all documents related to blank, and they just wanted the phone record. And the court said no. The court said that can include therapists, doctors, friends, colleagues, business people. It's way too broad.
Lively's team went in hoping to score a massive win, but ended up walking out looking like complete amateurs. Even attorney Greg Doucette, a legal expert, couldn't believe how ridiculous Lively's strategy was. He flat out called it a swing and a miss, which is just a polite way of saying, "Blake, you embarrassed yourself."
And so what he did was just send him back to the drawing board and said, you gotta go meet and confer again. You could serve a more narrowly tailored subpoena, but you haven't done it.
Let's be honest, Lively's legal team is struggling. They're making mistakes like a toddler trying to walk for the first time. She claims Baldoni started a smear campaign in 2024, but is demanding records from 2022. Even the judge pointed out this clear contradiction, highlighting how flawed her case really is, When you make basic timeline errors in your lawsuit, you set yourself up to lose.
Is this truly a win for Justin and a loss for Blake?
Absolutely a win for Justin, and you're absolutely right, Andy, in your interpretation of the document. What they said is basically, they told you to go, you have to go meet and compare and see to come up with more narrow requests.
But of course, Blake wasn't going to take this L quietly. Instead of, hiring better lawyers or actually proving her case, she did what every Hollywood starlet does when they're cornered. She brought in a government-trained propagandist to clean up her mess.
He's right there. He's absolutely right there. They are trying to keep some evidence out of the public eye.
Yes, let's talk about Nick Shapiro, the former CIA deputy chief of staff who was now magically transformed into a crisis PR expert. Because when things go south, what do? You call a guy who's trained in psychological warfare and government-level media manipulation. Nothing says I'm innocent like hiring a man who literally helped the government cover up scandals.
First and foremost, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have hired former CIA agents with a proven track record of lying to the public, gaslighting the public.
Nick Shapiro isn't just any PR agent. This man worked under John Brennan, the former CIA director, and played a major role in intelligence-backed media control. And if that wasn't shady enough, he was one of the 51 intelligence officials who falsely signed a letter in 2020 claiming Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Let that sink in. He literally lied to the entire world to protect a political figure. And now he's supposed to make Blake Lively look like a victim? Good luck with that.
She's quietly working with Nick Shapiro, the CIA's former deputy chief of staff and senior advisor to former director John Brennan. So this guy, high up, just about as high up as you could possibly get.
But let's not kid ourselves. Blake didn't hire Shapiro because she needed PR help. She hired him to spin the narrative, silence journalists, and bury negative press, because that's exactly what he does. His entire career is built on controlling media narratives and manipulating public perception. This isn't a PR move. This is a cover-up.
They just sort of take out, smear, and destroy the reputations of people that they don't like, or people perhaps that their clients don't like. But the question is, who do they do that on behalf of?
Lively knows her case is crumbling, and instead of accepting the loss, she's doubling down on deception. She's not hiring a lawyer to strengthen her legal argument. She's hiring a former government intelligence officer to make sure the public doesn't catch on to the fact that she's losing.
Blake and Ryan, who for sure gave that information to Megan Twohey of the New York Times, have opted to use a former top guy at the CIA for PR. So what is he doing for them exactly, okay?
Candace Owens absolutely destroyed Lively's pathetic attempt at PR damage control. She straight up said it. Nick Shapiro isn't just a PR agent, he's a government propagandist. And that's exactly why Blake brought him in, not to help her case, but to control the media spin around it.
But this is an actual headline right now in Variety. It reads, Blake Lively hires CIA alum for crisis PR in legal battle with Justin Baldoni.
And the funniest part, it's backfiring horribly. Hollywood is seeing right through Lively's tactics. The public is turning on her faster than she ever expected, and every time her ridiculous legal strategy blows up in her face, she just looks guiltier.
I mean, that first subpoena, as you pointed out when we talked on our prior show, it was massively overbroad. He basically asked for everything under the sun, and it was crazy. It was never going to do it for him in full. So I'm surprised they would back off and try to do it a little more tailored.
Blake Lively thought she was playing chess, but she's barely playing checkers at this point. Hiring Nick Shapiro only made her look worse. Failing to get Baldoni's phone records only proved she has no solid evidence, and the more her legal team humiliates themselves in court, the clearer it becomes that she has nothing.
The judge makes a point of well, then why do you need 2 years worth? In her own suit, she alleges this campaign started in August. So why the reach for 2.5 years? Was nice to see the judge really sort of acknowledge that. Here, this is the part I'm looking.
Let's not forget the huge lawsuits hanging over her head right now. Baldoni is suing her and Ryan Reynolds for $400 million, accusing them of defamation and extortion. Meanwhile, the New York Times is facing a $250 million lawsuit for publishing a hit piece that was almost certainly fed to them by Lively's team.
Is anyone else seeing the gaslighting from Blake and Ryan, constantly trying to just wave things that we've seen with our own minds and pretend like they didn't happen?
Now, thanks to Judge Lyman tearing her subpoena request apart, Baldoni's case against her is looking stronger than ever. This whole thing started because Lively thought she could destroy Baldoni's career, but now it's looking like she's the one who won't have a career left when this is all over.
Remember, a massive part of the CIA's job, really the most important part of the CIA's job, is managing public relations, because we, the people, wouldn't agree to go to war unless they sold that idea to us. They need a crisis.
Remember, a massive part of the CIA's job, really the most important part, is managing public relations, because we, the people, wouldn't agree to go to war unless they sold that idea to us. They need a crisis to control the narrative and manipulate public perception.
She thinks this is okay, and like proudly displaying us, we're women, so we can just lie and cheat and steal our way into control these big movies. I mean, how disturbing is this to you?
Blake Lively's hypocrisy is beyond comical at this point. In 2020, she sat back, mocking Justin Baldoni for hiring crisis PR experts ahead of their film's release, acting as if he was some desperate celebrity scrambling to fix his image. Fast forward to 2024, and what does she do? She hires a literal CIA-trained PR manipulator. You can't make this up. She ridiculed Baldoni for using PR, then turned around and dragged in a deep state government asset to save her sinking ship.
She's on Saturday Night Live with Ryan making jokes, hitting back. I mean, is it not a little hypocritical? Is it a bad look of her if she's trying to tell the courts that we should stop talking about this in public?
This woman really thought no one would notice, but the internet never forgets, and neither does the public. She mocked Baldoni for trying to control a media narrative, yet she's the one now running to her Hollywood friends, begging for sympathy and planting hit pieces in the media. And let's not forget how desperate she and Ryan Reynolds look. These two actually went on SNL and tried to joke about the lawsuit because apparently when you're losing in court, you just turn it into a comedy skit.
Blake Lively is caught in old footage, revealing that yes, her secret plan is to always take control of the movies and lie to the directors